Hey, Valsasenko, welcome to part 2 of week 6. We are going to be going through the rest of your notebook today, specifically the argumentative paragraph. On Monday's video, we went over how to do summaries from our summary notes, and we are now going to be looking at paragraphs. Hopefully you did the article comparison yesterday, and we will use these articles again in our paragraphs. All right, so let's get into it. So make sure your notebook is open. Go ahead and grab it and find it now if you don't already have it open. Okay, so we've gone over argumentative paragraphs a few times already, but it's really important that you have evidence from text. I feel like that is the single most common mistake in argumentative writing, is not providing actual evidence and just saying things we remember. And I noticed this a lot when I've been looking at your paragraphs the last few weeks, that you'll say, like, George Washington should be remembered as a hero, period. He helped win wars, and he was our first president. Just like general, just remembering things instead of actually finding the evidence that supports that. So when we are writing any argumentative paragraph at all, you have to have at least one quote in there from a text. You can also use things like personal examples, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But you have to have evidence from a text, okay? So in an argumentative paragraph, we're going to use evidence from a text. We're going to use real quotes, full quotes, exactly from a source. We're going to use a personal example. We're going to use emotionally charged words that support our idea, not take away from it. And what I mean by that is sometimes we'll use an emotionally charged word that actually contradicts ourselves, like cancels out our argument without even realizing it. Like when you were talking about George Washington being a hero, if you would have said that he had a hatred towards slaves in that same paragraph, that would not have been good. It would have sort of contradicted your entire idea. And then an advanced skill that you don't always have to do, but if you can, it's amazing. It really strengthens your writing, which is discount the counter argument. So something like, other people might say blah blah blah, however they're wrong for these reasons. So the prompt we're going to be working on this week is plan a persuasive paragraph stating whether a person's wishes concerning their remains after death should be honored or not, using evidence from any of the texts and personal evidence. So this is the page in your notebook you're looking at right now. The first thing that I did here is I actually already put my topic sentence in here. So the topic sentence is always your answer to the prompt. It's going to be the very first sentence in your paragraph. And you need to make sure it's actually answering the prompt. In this case, because it's a persuasive prompt, you're going to have options for the topic sentence. You're either going to say a person's concerns should be honored, or wishes should be honored or not. So I just chose that a person's wishes concerning their remains after death should be honored. The argument here, just to play devil's advocate here, to show you why other people might have a different argument. And you may absolutely argue the opposite way. So another way you could go with this is that a person's wishes concerning their remains after death should not be honored. And the reason why some people argue for that is because after you have passed on, you don't know what happens to your remains, but your family does. And so sometimes a family will not like the wishes of a loved one, and will decide what they want to do. Like maybe they want to be cremated and thrown into the ocean, but the family really wants to have a grave to go and visit. So then they might decide, because the family will remember and they will care, but the deceased will not. They are dead. They're gone. They don't know, right? So that's why you can go either direction with this argument. I'm going to argue that a person's wishes should be honored sort of no matter what. And we're going to look at some evidence from the articles from Einstein to prove that, and then provide a personal example. All right, so let's first make sure you have that written down, and then we're going to find evidence. We're planning our paragraph ahead of time to make sure that we have all of the required parts in all of the required spots. Direct evidence from text with page numbers. We need at least 2. I'm going to look at one of these articles we have and see if I can find something about what happened to Einstein. Without permission from Einstein's family, Harvey mounted those brain slices onto slides and distributed them to an unknown number of researchers. Right? Okay, so this is a good example, a good piece of evidence here because it talks about how he did something that even the family didn't want. So where is his brain? So a portion of the slides that have never been recovered too. Okay, so let's just go with this right here, this one, this quote. Okay, so I'm just going to copy and paste it into my, for you, you're going to put it right here. I'm going to just put it right there. And this is from, I want to make sure I have the author and title. Where's Einstein's Brain by Brandon Spector. I'm going to make that smaller so we can actually get stuff in here. Okay. This is the quote. Right now, because we are just planning the paragraph, we don't really need to worry about the format or anything else. We're just going to make sure that we have the quotes there, and we'll worry about formatting them correctly later and explaining them later. Okay, we're just looking for quotes at this moment. So I already got a quote from this one. Let's see if I can find a quote from this article. Before the cremation, a pathologist at Princeton removed the scientist's brain from his skull during a routine autopsy. Okay. He had no authority to do so. Doctor believed that there would be benefit to studying. Here is another example about what he wanted. Right here. So I'm going to use that quote. Oops, wrong thing, sorry. And put that here. And this one is from Einstein's Brain, Forgotten Remains, and the Dignity of Burials. There might be other quotes in here. Like, these are just two that I'm grabbing. There are plenty of other quotes in all of these that could potentially help support this idea that people should have their wishes honored about their remains. Oh, geez. What did I just do? All right, sorry about that. We had a little technical difficulty for a minute. Okay, so now we have two quotes from those articles, one from each of them. Okay, if you can provide quotes from multiple articles, you will have a stronger argument. If you have quote from just one article and the author later we discover that the author was really, really wrong, well, then your whole argument's thrown out. But if you have quotes from multiple authors, then if one of them ends up being wrong in other ways, that doesn't mean that your whole argument's discounted because you have other evidence, okay? So having multiple sources is great and strengthens your argument. But now that we have our two quotes, the next thing we want to do is provide a personal example. This can be anything at all. This can be like my uncle, well, this is kind of a funny example. So yeah, I'll use this one because I don't know how serious my uncle is, but my uncle wants to have himself put in a, you know what a Jack in the Box is? And it's like, and it goes, Anyways, he kind of wants to be put in one of those, and then I told him no, and he said, well, at least have that music playing with my when people are visiting my coffin. It's a funny story. Actually, that would probably be better evidence to support the idea that people's wishes should not always be honored, because if my uncle really does want to be put in a Jack in the Box, that's kind of crazy, and no one would want to go to his funeral. So that's a bad example. Let's see, thinking like when you're doing this, you're going to have to think of an example too that's personal to you. Think about a loved one that passed away. Think about someone you know of that passed away. It doesn't have to be someone close to you. And just, write about the experience of what they wanted and what actually happened. So, like, for example, when my sister passed away, she wanted to be cremated, and then she wanted basically to be, like, her urn to be buried with a gravestone so that her daughters could still go and, like, visit the gravestone, but she wanted to be cremated. Well, that hasn't completely happened. Her husband she was cremated, but her husband never buried the ashes or got a gravestone. And so that could be a story that I tell here, and how that my sister wouldn't have wanted that, and she, this is what she wanted, right? So, I'm not going to do this one with you. I just gave you an example, but this is going to be really personal. So if you copied all of this, that's great. You can. But this part, you're going to have to come up with your own idea, your own story, own example of something that happens that makes you think that people's wishes should be honored. Okay? So pause the video now and finish finding all your evidence and writing your little personal example. Okay, so now that we have all of our evidence done, what you're going to want to do here is to do your little explain. So explaining how this proves your point. So here, Einstein's family wanted him to be cremated too, but the guy who did the autopsy just kind of stole the brain, right? So even though Einstein wanted to be cremated, Harvey stole his brain, and that was disrespectful to Einstein and his family. I know I'm not spelling everything quick. I'm going kind of quickly, so I'm making some typing mistakes here. Your explains can really be lots of different things. Even though is a great way to start an explain. We know that if then, right? So like if Einstein wanted to be cremated, then he should have been cremated. So, like people's remains need to be treated as they wanted them to be, right? So give yourself a little bit of time now to write out the explains. I'm going to pause, and you should pause to do that, and then I'll talk to you about how to turn this into a paragraph. All right, so now that you have your plan done, I'm going to talk to you about how this plan turns into a paragraph. Basically, if you've done your plan correctly, your entire paragraph's done. You just have to put it in the right order and add some connection words. So this is going to be sentence number 1. This is number 2. This would be number 3. This would be number 4. This would be number 5, 6, and then you'd have your explain here that you did, and that would be number 7, and then at the end you're going to write a conclusion statement. And that's really it. So you're going to have to add a few connection words, like introduce the quotes here. You could say in the article, "Where is Einstein's Brain" by Brandon Spector, it said that. So introduce the titles and the authors, but this is the order of your paragraph. All right, well, finish this and make sure your notebook's submitted by Friday at 3 or 1, early release.